1, 2,
Standing
go.
by. You know it.
Here we go.
Hey, everybody, you're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz,
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
and we are your hairy, heavy homos to talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in or possibly stream in, as I mentioned. And we're here on the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend. So we're on the cusp of, I assume, a break for most people. And, I'm already on, I've been on PTO since 8 o'clock this morning. So I'm relaxed.
Nice.
Very relaxed. Yeah.
It's nice to be relaxed. It's nice to have sort of like, a long weekend to look forward to. It's a good change.
Well, I still have a
This is
pulse,
kind of like the
so
stretch.
I'm not relaxed. I'm fairly certain if I ever actually relax, I'll just die. My office is closed tomorrow, but I have to go in and do a little bit of work. But other than that, I will be only working a few hours tomorrow, and then I'm off till Tuesday, and I'm going to enjoy a much needed break because work has been busy. We are gearing up for a massive a convention for like municipalities in Arkansas. So that's been taking up a lot of oxygen in the room on top of my other work. And so very, very glad to have a little bit of break before we go full bore and get that knocked out. And I'm leaving that Thursday when the convention is kind of over and then coming to see you guys. So I'm super excited.
Yay!
I think we'll talk about a little bit for HeroesCon. Steve did some recon.
Ooh.
That was a joke.
That's
a joke. That was a neat slapper.
Hey, you intend your puns.
Yeah.
There is no unintentional anything here. Yes.
Yeah. So this weekend, I don't have much going on. Sunday is the Rolling Stones.
Very cool.
So that's going to be fun.
I've heard of them. They're a bunch of young whippersnappers.
So the first time I saw the Stones, Steve, you would have been 1 year old, and Caleb was not born yet. So that's how old I am.
You at some point, I'm going to give you the daunting task of giving me a list of your.
I have an Excel sheet that goes up to 2011, and I think there's over 1,000. No, 2011, and I think that hovers around 1,000 concerts somewhere in that. Yeah, so that's in a list format, and then after that, I was relying on stuff like Setlist FM and Facebook. Like I could conceivably put the list together, and I always mean to, but I never get to it.
Well, so I was more saying a list of your favorite song, like your favorite Stones song. I think that'd be a cool thing to do.
I can answer that right off the bat, Lady Jane. Okay. Right off the bat, like very by a mile, it's Lady Jane. So interesting. And then because I haven't seen, they're not a band, A, because of the expense, and B, just because they don't come around as much. You have big gaps in years. So it's not been a case where I've seen them on every tour since I've been seeing concerts. But there was a show. I want to say Nassau Coliseum, and I think that was around 2017, 2018, and they played Lady Jane, and that was the first time they played it live since before I was born. So as my straight concert husband Tom said, that was like your whole life. And they just decided to play this song.
It's led to this moment here.
I almost pulled the trigger on that, but you know, you can't see everything. But I'm going Sunday though, so I'm excited, and the weather's cooperating. Thank God for an outdoor show. There's nothing better.
I feel like Wild Horses would be my number one.
Yeah.
Get Off My Cloud is up there.
Yeah.
Gimme Shelter is up there.
Yeah. Painted Black is way up there.
Painted Black is in my top.
Yeah, Painted Black. That's mine.
Yeah. There's one more. I can't. I'm sitting here going through I'm looking at my playlists on here. I'm trying to think of what my other five, my other fifth one would be. Yeah. Maybe Sympathy for the Devil, but that seems like it's not. It's a great song, but it's not as good as some of their other ones.
Yeah. Under My Thumb is way up there.
Under My Thumb. That may be what I'm actually thinking of. That is
Under My Thumb is way up there for me. Yeah, Nervous Breakdown I really love.
I learned that bass line about 2 months ago, and I haven't played that in a while. I need to go pull out and play that again.
Yeah.
I see an axe in the back, so there you go.
Yeah,
that's your opportunity.
Handy dandy 4-string.
Just in case you need it.
What else? God, there's so many good songs. Ruby Tuesday will probably be way up for me.
It's a top 10.
Way up there, yeah.
I
could grab
anything newer. Is there anything newer than say like 1980?
Well, they do 2 songs from Hackney Diamonds, the new song. Like of their new stuff, you know.
In the past,
there used to be a joke that Randy Newman used to say in concert is like, people have to understand that your creative peak is between 24 and 25 and a half.
Yeah. Shattered. Shattered's in my top 10.
Shattered, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm just thinking of the album. There's like a lot of like great buried gems, like Salt of the Earth. You know, there's some deep cuts that are so good that people don't know about. You know, if they're a civilian. But
it's only rock and roll, but I like it. Like that's just a pure rock and roll song. I think it's a great song.
Like the first song, like when I started really listening to music, and the first song that I appreciated was them. You know, like when I was like 11 or so, Miss You.
Yeah.
And that definitely is my first Stones record, was Miss You.
So I think the first song that I ever and again, like obviously a lot of it's retrospective, right? But I think for me, Wild Horses was the first time I really paid attention to them as something other than, hey, that's a band like the Beatles. They help invent rock and roll, but they're just not somebody I'm going to listen to a lot of because they're before my time. Like when I heard that song and truly heard it and started reading the lyrics and just realized how beautiful the lyricism of that song was, and how actually deceivingly intricate the guitar playing on that song is. And I was like, oh, like I get it. Like,
yeah,
it's one thing. Like, okay, yes, you kind of helped it. I won't say you can't give them all the credit, right? But you very much were instrumental in creating this thing. But you also did it. It's like you both created it and you made one of the best that you could possibly make. It's like if the first car had been a McLaren F1, right? It's just like you created something perfect, and you were the first one to. So.
Yeah, they had the bad luck in terms of being songwriters, Jagger and Richards, of operating at the same time as Lennon and McCartney, as Bob Dylan, as Burt Bacharach and Hal David, as Holland Dozier Holland. You know, they didn't have luck there, you know, because or Brian Wilson, you know, because as songwriters, they're tremendous.
They are. And
one thing I have to say is what I didn't really appreciate how much of their sound is Keith Richards until his first solo album came out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, whoa, he's 50% of the Stones, you know.
He is. But everybody thinks, you know, Mick, right? Because he's the front man and he's got the moves and the swagger, right? But you've got Richards, and then I really, really don't think that up until, maybe more recently, and people who are truly just appreciative of the music, but the rhythm section of that band was just a well-oiled machine, right?
And the thing that was great about them is that it's not a rock rhythm section.
No, it's more of a blues rhythm section.
Blues and jazz. Yeah. I mean, Charlie Watts is a jazz drummer.
Yeah, it plays a lot in like 7-8 time. Like,
so that makes a big difference and makes them stand apart. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's just and to have a group that's, kind of chaotic on stage, but that rhythm section it's like they are playing like they play on the recordings, right? They are just that locked in. It's foundational. It really is.
So if you're just joining us
today, we're just
joining us. Welcome to the Rolling Stone Bear.
Welcome to Bears.
Next, we're going to be doing a deep dive into like Altamont and the aftermath. But oh well, no, that's pretty cool. Caleb, what about you this weekend? Other than you having to work tomorrow, do you have anything like planned, or is it just collapse until Tuesday?
No, so I have not picked up my comics for the week. I'm going to go pick up my funny books. I'm going to spend, like I said, I'm going to go tomorrow and work a little bit, knock some stuff off my to-do list. Since we're off Monday, the grand poobah of my office is very generous, and he said, "Hey, you know what? We're closed Monday for the holiday, but what if we just close Friday too? Right? Everybody get a 4-day weekend, which is great, right?" I was like, okay, no, I think that's an awesome idea. I personally don't want to miss 2 days, so I'm going to come in for a little bit, knock some stuff off the plate, so I'm not so backed up. And then Saturday, I don't have a lot planned. I'm going to hang out, get some stuff done around the house. But I have a little cousin who is getting married Saturday, so I'm going to travel down to the wedding. My niece, my brother's little girl, is the flower girl, so I'm going to go. This is the gayest thing I've ever said. I bought a tiara that matches her dress, and I'm going to go place the little tiara on her head. And she is going to be a pretty princess, and I'm going to be a very, very, very pleased, happy, and proud uncle, and just watch her bebop around and just enjoy some time with the family. Right. Sunday, having a cookout with one group of friends, group of folks I usually eat with on Sundays anyway. It's kind of our routine, but we're going to get together with them. And then Monday, my law school gays are having a little cookout. So 2 cookouts in a row. I am going to be the grill daddy because that's what I do. So I'm excited.
I haven't been to a cookout since July.
See this? We need to move closer. I need to find a well-paying job somewhere in Jersey that I can come up and
you don't want to come
have a backyard. Where
North Carolina.
I'm totally okay with moving away. I'll
find.
So damn expensive, Jesus.
If we gotta live somewhere, we might as well. Yeah. Anyway, get me a grill with a porch in Hawaii or somewhere else that's nice, and we'll go there, and you can come over, and I will grill for you.
If you could live anywhere, where would it be?
Ooh, anywhere on the planet. Ooh. That's a tough one, right? Because it's a mix. So one part of my brain wants to go Fiji because it's basically a paradise. The other part of my brain, I love cities. I want to be immersed in a metropolitan area. So there's like New York or London is very high on those lists.
My dream would be to have a house in Kensington in London. That'd be
cool. That'd be very cool.
Just plant me there. Give me a stack of old Justice Leagues. Put me in a chair.
Can I modify my answer?
Internet connectivity, and that's all I need.
Not really a place like a city or anything, but a very specific structure. I would kill to own and live in the house that was once owned by Aleister Crowley that Led Zeppelin turned around and recorded in. That house.
I would not visit you.
Please?
I would not visit you. No. You have to meet somewhere else. No.
Super haunted.
Yes.
Super haunted.
Not just haunted. Haunted as fuck.
Yeah, no, it's seriously. There is massively there are spells embedded into the paint.
I mean, if you take a look at all the. Let me just grab this here. It's funny you mentioned this. We don't need.
He's gonna go find some ghosts.
I got
like, you should
this
see these
recently,
things.
the Led Zeppelin concert file.
Yeah.
And all the crazy shit, all the weird shit that happened to them from 74 on.
Yeah.
Nope.
Also, can we talk about how I mentioned randomly a band and like Bill only had to like stretch and stand up a little bit to reference them.
That was pure luck just because it's
but like that house, just there's so much history, weirdness, and magic there. And I mean, we've talked about my predilection for the dark arts and for that kind of thing. I enjoy it, and I there's some juju there I would like to be around.
Nope. Steve, how about you? Where would you live if you could live anywhere?
I don't know, because I love living in a city. I like a city with a lot of stuff going on at all times. I mean, I loved when I lived in Montreal when I was in college, but I don't know if I could live there now, just with all the crazy political stuff that's going on up there. But, everywhere else that I'd enjoy, like potentially living in Tokyo, living down in, Sydney, often Berlin. I mean, these are just great.
I was A-okay with Australia, but there's a website, Things in Australia That Will Kill You.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're in the city, if you're in a city, you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, I know you're okay. Yeah, but whoa.
Yeah.
That's like another planet.
Everything there is specifically evolved to murder.
Yeah, it's I mean, wildlife is one thing. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's so many great places that have part of what I want. I would love to live here for this, but I'd also love to live somewhere else for another aspect. And it's it's kind of hard to find something that has everything for you. That's not going to end up being either an expensive death trap or just on the cusp of political upheaval. So I don't know. Anywhere really, anywhere with a comic book shop and a bubble tea store. And a good movie theater.
Prague. I'd live in Prague.
Prague would be nice. But again, you'd have to wait for some movies to get there.
I could live in Amsterdam easily.
See, I'd die.
Too many bikes.
That's your issue?
Too many bikes. I get run over.
If I
wouldn't live in Beijing because
I could live in Amsterdam.
Here's my thing with Amsterdam, right? Like, I could go and visit Amsterdam and be fine. If I've got stupid money where I get to just live anywhere and like to have the means to do whatever I want and everything, it means I'm not struggling. Like, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. Then I've got no reason not to do a lot of the things that I could do in Amsterdam, and I would die. I would die very young. Like I would like if I have no reason not to, like a lot of the reason that I'm the fine upstanding citizen that I am is because I have reasons to be. Like, if I got money, I'm gonna do a lot of drugs. like why not?
Yeah. Well, and also public healthcare, which is really good there. So,
also because there's a lot of drugs.
Somebody reviving you.
If you're rich, who gives a fuck?
I'll med flight the team in.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All right. That's enough. We have to talk about comic books. We kind of have to.
I guess that's the point.
Steve, tell us. Let's do like a little bit of a preview for HeroesCon, where all three of us will be.
I know. Yeah. So HeroesCon is in less than a month from today. Today being May 23rd. It is less than a month away. It is Father's Day weekend here in the U.S.
Anybody need a daddy?
Sunday the 16th. And for any daddies that want to attend, absolutely come and join us. So it'll be in Charlotte, North Carolina, and as with every year, there's just an insane number of guests that are going to be there. Just a crazy number of artists, writers, colorists, letterers. Just anybody who has anything to do with comics is going to be there, which is pretty cool. So I just browsing through their list of guests, we have names like Francesco Francavilla, Scotty Young, Ryan Brown, Amanda Conner, and Jimmy Palmiotti, who of course are always a package deal. Mark Guggenheim, Jay Lee, Mark Buckingham, Chris Claremont, of course, is going to be making another appearance there. Howard Chaykin, Justin Jordan. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Caleb. He did a couple books here and there.
Slightly.
Might know. Chrissy Zullo. Alyssa Wong, if you read Spirit World from DC. Stephanie Williams. I mean, there's a lot more names. There's a ton more names on there. But if you want to check them out, see if you're still kind of on the fence of popping by, if you go to HeroesOnline.com, you can actually get a link to the entire guest list, and it is.
So I have to ask you, because of two names you omitted there, who are so ingrained in the HeroesCon culture. No Matt Fraction or Kelly Sue?
No, not this time around. I think. Oh, yeah, no, not this time. Chip Zdarsky, I don't think also will be attending. They used to attend quite frequently. Matt, of course, used to work at Heroes Aren't Hard to Find in Charlotte years ago. But I think probably because West Coast, it's going to be a little bit tricky for them, to get out here. Might be part of it. But they did used to attend quite frequently. Milkfed used to have a pretty good presence at the show, as well as doing some panel work. But yeah, I don't this time and last year as well. And I remember one of my favorite times where they were both there. They were like selling out of the Tijuana Bible from Sex Crim, was just flying off of Matt's table there. And it was that was actually pretty funny. Getting to chat with Chip Zdarsky, who is he's just a lot of fun in person too. Getting those guys together is just always a blast. Too bad they won't be here this time.
For somebody else who was a mainstay, and I completely understand why there may be a no-show, Jim Rugg.
Yeah.
He is still coming.
Yeah,
I've
heard he is.
He will still be there. And also, there will be the family of Ed Pisker is going to be tabling. So so probably with Jim Rugg, because they always kind of table together. So they are going to be there. So they'll
I've seen them in the past, like Neil Adams' family. But I think some of it is they already have the table.
But that's a big part of it.
I think some of that is that.
I don't know if Tom Scaly's coming or not. I haven't heard about that yet, but I knew that Rugg was going to be there.
I think Tom Scaly's going to be there actually. I think there were a couple other people too that usually kind of in that orbit. There will be a Van Sciver present, but it will be the fun one, Noah. The more enjoyable one, the one that you don't want to hit.
I don't think EBS has done like a mainstream convention in ages.
They probably won't let him.
Yeah,
I don't think a lot of places.
That's probably a thanks, but no thanks.
No,
but
Jason, Noah's a lot of fun, so definitely check him out.
I think Jason Latour will be there again, if I'm not mistaken. He came back year before last was his first kind of foray back since he got into all the trouble that he got in.
He was gone for quite a while.
Yeah,
which was really sad because there was a lot of stuff that he was putting out that unfortunately just kind of work just dried up immediately. He was out. He lives locally near Charlotte in Gastonia, so he was always one of those guaranteed presences for a while until.
So one of the things, since we're talking about HeroesCon, I'd like what makes HeroesCon special for you guys, right? Because you guys go to a lot of cons. Bill, especially you live up in you live up in the Northeast, where you have New York Comic Con and stuff like that, which you do most of the time, and it's big doings, right? But what for those of folks who might be listening who are used to hearing about cons like NYCC or like C2E2 or Rose City or Comic-Con, right, San Diego, what is it about Charlotte, about HeroesCon that is the draw? That because it gets talked about, if you're in the comics world, you talk about HeroesCon. What is it about it for you guys?
I had a cough there. It's just comics. It's just comics. Same thing with Baltimore. Those are my two favorite cons because it's just comics.
Yep.
it's. I think that keeping it simple is one of the big reasons why it's so popular, because there's nothing between you and the artists, the writers, people that you've grown up reading, creators of all these characters that you love. The only thing between you and them is, what a 4-foot wide table. Like that is it. And that's all day, 3 days, 3 days in.
And I'm not coming from that standpoint of being a snob about pop culture conventions. They have their merits too. They have their merits of, I'm certain that there would be shows I'd love to get photo ops with certain people, and they have their place too. I don't want to be a snob about that, but there's something very appealing about there's still something very lo-fi about something that it's just a Comic-Con.
Well, I think
it's just comics, and I guess
I think that's what it is for me. And again, I'm kind of like you. I don't want to be a snob about the like you said, quote unquote, pop culture cons, right?
They have their place,
What I love about, and I've only been to Heroes once, right? So I can only speak to that. But what I love about Heroes is that it is a con-wide celebration of the medium of comics, right? Of these things. And the other cons are not that, right? There's a corner that is a celebration of the medium of comics, and then you get a celebration of movies, you get a celebration of books and toys and everything else. And now obviously there's going to be vendors selling toys and stuff, but your big studios aren't set up, and you don't have a ton of actors who are like taking pictures and stuff. And so instead of the celebration of comics being like just a part of it in one corner, it's the entire thing. And I really enjoyed that, right? Because that brings in the type of people that I want to hang out with and talk with, the people that I'm friends with. And so like all of this big group of folks that we know are kind of converging there. And we enjoy it because you're not getting, again, not being snobbish about it, but you're not getting drowned out by the rest of the noise. And I really appreciate that. Like that makes it really fun, because it for me, it's the only way, short of building a time machine, that I can get the type of experience like you might have gotten at the early New York Comic Cons or the early San Diego Comic Cons and stuff before they were such a major draw. And I just think that's cool because it's kind of a window into the past, but now. To me, that's a really fun experience.
Yeah. I just also wanted to say that I think for us, third time will be lucky because this triumvirate has not had much luck with Heroes. 2 years ago, Steve came down with COVID just before we had the show. Last year, Caleb couldn't go to the show, and for my show, only amounted to one day because I ended up in a wheelchair. Saturday.
I get to push him around the big art auction though. That was fun.
So I'm really
don't mind me. I'm just his aide.
I am employing the biggest cliche in the world that the third time will be the charm.
So, yeah, Steve, you're going into a bubble now, right? Like we.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not visiting my family. Like, they're not, because that's how I got the COVID the last time. No, they are staying away. I am just going to be basically sitting in my house, which isn't too out of the ordinary for me, but I won't be exposing myself to other people. Wait, hold on. Not that way. Not exposing myself to other people. Not being exposed to other people's jerks.
Do you guys have because there is such a footprint of back issues and con and ephemera, do you guys have like a list of things that you're gonna be looking for?
Well, my list is kind of legendary.
Sure.
It's legendary. It's more of an I don't have list than it is a want list.
Right.
So if you see me at the show, I'll show you I'm going to update it before I go. There will be a difference though, because I missed some comics over the last year because of falling asleep at the wheel for DCBS and being sold out of stuff. So I'm actually going to be hitting stuff for some,
contemporary stuff,
comics of more recent vintage to hopefully get at like $1.50.
That's what I'm going to be doing too, which I almost never do. Bill, know me. I'm not. I don't spend a lot of time standing at the short boxes or the long boxes or flipping through things most of the time. But the past couple of times that I've gone, at Baltimore and Heroes last year, I've found myself like filling in some of those more recent gaps. Like, hey, the past year or a couple of years, I missed an issue here and there, and this is the way of filling it in.
So that's actually going to be a concentration for me. Also, HeroesCon. I said it's just comics. The vendors are something else, though. They'll have toys and stuff.
Yep.
HeroesCon is the only convention I physically saw the Funko Pop of former Packer Clay Matthews. So I just have a feeling I'm going to see it there.
And this time, are you going to be picking it up, or is it?
This time I will pick it up, and also if I can find Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is really hard to find. Anyone who buy my Aaron Rodgers, I'm open to offers right now.
I doubt I will be looking for. I doubt I'll be looking for any toys just because I'm flying, right? So I'm not picking up a ton of stuff that
maybe you got to do what I do.
FedEx. Yeah. Which, by the way, there is a FedEx in the Westin Hotel that a lot of them staying in. So that's very helpful. If I see something, I'll grab it, right? That I have to live with that, or that I can't live without. For me, it is going in and looking for books, though. I've kind of put together a little list of just like, hey, that seems like a cool title I've never read before. I could totally buy the omnibus, or I could just find some floppies, right? See what it is. I want to finish my run of Airboy. I have like the first, just the Eclipse stuff. They're not hard to find, but I want to get all the originals.
They're getting harder, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they are getting harder. And just also keep in mind that there's those ancillary titles like the Air Maidens and Valkyrie and stuff. I'm real close to completing mine too.
Yeah.
So,
there's some, I'm always on the lookout for Tales to Astonish, and early Hulk stuff that's not going to cost me my legs. I'm actually going to try to like find some Blackhawks stuff. Like I want to kind of go on a Chaykin binge a little bit. So I want to check that out.
Well, that's really easy because it's only 3 issues.
Well, and Howard's going to be there. So if you do find some issues,
I just walk up and be like, hey, where are these at?
It's a little confused because the I'm me, I love. And we actually have a very funny story at Heroes with Steve and I, as I'm watching a guy taking all these old Blackhawks just because I couldn't get to those. Oh, it was heartbreaking. It was so sad.
Sadness.
The thing with the Chaykin Blackhawk is it's only the 3 prestige issues, but that storyline continued into Action Comics Weekly and into the ongoing. And that was Marty Pasco. That was his best work, like by far. He was great in that. And I think some people actually think that the issues that were written by Mike Grell and by Marty Pasco were actually Chaykin, just because
how well it
continuation. And that, and they're all in the Blood and Iron hardcover. If you have that, it's all.
Well, and you never know. Chaykin might have just might have shorthanded out where the story was going and gave them a paragraph or two, and they just scripted it out. I mean, that was not uncommon. It's not uncommon today. I mean, I'm reading a book right now that it came out of the mind of James Tynion, but it's scripted by somebody else.
I tend to not think that though, because I think by the 80s people were very credit conscious. And very payment conscious, especially when it came to royalties if something did take off. So if that was a 70s concept, that would be a little more
specific to Chaykin. We all know his feelings about Star Wars.
I think by the 80s the creators were savvy enough not to give anything away.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you caught what I said. I was going to say specific to Chaykin, we all know his feelings around the way that the politics of him creating Star Wars. And even though he did get credit on that, he was not happy with it at all and did not like the editorializing that was done and stuff, the world around it. So he doesn't even talk about the Star Wars stuff now, or he just badmouths it. So he's not happy with it at all. Just because the editorial was so heavy-handed.
The Star Wars series was so strange, though. I mean, it really was.
fun.
I'm going to be similar to that vein. I'm going to be looking for some American flag. I want to check that out. See if I can't find American
that
flag.
You can get cheap.
Yeah, you can usually find those pretty cheap.
Yeah.
If you want, I can pull out a couple issues that I have.
Contribute to the cause.
That you definitely can get cheap.
Yeah.
And then last but not even last, I'm just not mentioning a bunch of stuff, but I want to try to finish out my run of Marvel Comics Presents. I've been working on it for a long, long time. I love that series. Again, not expensive, right? It's mostly later issues that I've got to get, but I just, in theory, love with that. Love with that. It's a bunch of stories in one. It was affordable for people who, wanted to read about a bunch of characters, but didn't have the money to buy 14 titles. You could just pick a book and you get parts of 6 stories.
And I once referred to it as the Love Boat of comics. So hear me out.
Okay.
The Love Boat, the guest actors would tend to be people who were on their way up or on their way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got that with Marvel Comics Presents. You would have artists that were working in the 40s and artists where it was their first published work in there. So that's where that comes from.
And for that exact reason, it's for the artists that are on that's their first work. That really is why I love getting them signed. I've got and I know I've said this on the show before. Sorry for treading old ground, but I've got books from Marvel Comics Presents that have got 7 or 8 signatures on them from those creators that are in there. And it's just because, again, the volume of people who worked on single issues, there's lots of them there, lots of stories. But you can take them up, and even bigger names like Bob McLeod, right? Bob McLeod inked in an issue coming up. And when he was at a little local con about 8 years ago, right? Everybody was getting him to, sign Hulk stuff and sign all these bigger things that Bob McLeod did. I took it up to him and was like, hey, I want you to sign this. And he was like, I think this was the first thing I ever did for Marvel. I'm not sure, but it was close. I haven't seen this in forever. And so him and I forget who it was that was tabling beside him. They stopped what they were doing and they just spent some time flipping through my copy of it and geeking out. And then, he signed it and stuff. And so that's cool to see because they realize, for me, right? These folks, they have, and this is, again, not knocking if people do this, that you do you, right? But there's a lot of people who just want their signature for flipping value, right? Yeah. Please sign this. Don't smudge it up because I'm going to sell it on eBay or whatever. I'm going to flip it. It's worth money. Yeah. That shit's going to be in my attic when I die, right? It's not going anywhere. Yeah. I love it because it is what it is. And I think when you take something like that to them, they're like, okay, no, this guy's just a fan, right? He appreciates this and he's going to keep it. So look at all these other signatures on there. That's awesome. And you get to see these creators smile, and to see a creator get nostalgic is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like you said,
that's the thing with.
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh no, I was just gonna say this. One of my favorite things about getting something signed, at a con, really any con. I don't usually bring stuff to get signed. I will pick it up from the artist, from the writer themselves, if they're selling something, or if they're not, I'll find something in the con and then bring it to them to sign. And I like it being personalized. I like saying don't just, if you can, some of them are just sort of I don't really have time for writing anything, but I like to have a story with the signature.
That's rare, Steve. That's really rare. I really haven't had too many. One creator who was stoned out of his gourd. But
there's been a couple that I've seen, but I like that. And again, it's all about con etiquette. If you've got a line of 80 people behind you, you do not have to tell your whole childhood history to a writer who's trying
how much you love Darkhawk. Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, when you did that arc on such and such in 1986 to 1987, it was the most meaningful thing to me, and I'm going to tell you everything about that. Why? When there's 80 people behind you, they do not like that. But if you got, if you catch them sort of an off time where there's not a lot of people around, it's perfect time to get a story.
I've got a question for the group. What is one of your so to play off this? What is one of your most memorable or your favorite memories of meeting a creator, getting something signed, or what? Just what? Because we collectively we've met a lot of people, some really cool stuff. Yeah. But what is the standout for you?
Grant Morrison, and where we spent like 5 minutes talking about X-ray specs and polystyrene.
Very cool.
Nothing to do with comics. Yeah.
Trying to think. Oh my god, I've got some interesting ones where, because there's a bunch that are jumping out, but I'll just give you one of them. When we met Cami Garcia at Baltimore, and she basically had us in a force field for 30 some minutes just chatting.
Yeah.
Like we were just blah 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 blah, and like there were people who were like, again, you're talking about con etiquette.
I'm on my book side, yeah.
But I'm not gonna cut her off if she wants to talk about like, the books.
Cami Garcia, that was a great experience.
Yeah. Working in publishing and everything. She was just so much fun, just chatting with, because it was like meeting. It was like a meeting, a family friend for someone you hadn't seen for 20 years, and she just wanted to give you all the stories, like fill you in right there. I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun, but oh my god, we've been here for how long?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of them. One of those stories. I like. There's just interesting people that sometimes you just sort of come across. My most embarrassing one, I've told it here, was when I didn't recognize Matt Wagner. Because he was just kind of hanging out by himself. He was alone. Nobody was around him. Nobody was talking to him.
Yeah,
he was just kind of doodling it.
That also baffles me, because sometimes you get you think like these people would have, people at their table. Like, I was shocked when there was nobody at Terry Moore's table.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it was like 5:30 p.m. It wasn't like the peak time, and so I just went over and talked to him. I didn't have anything to sign it, and just said, started talking about like how much I dug, not just Strangers in Paradise, but some of the other auxiliary. The Matt Wagner one. It was one of those situations where I didn't recognize who it was. I mean, obviously he was kind of hot, so I was like, I'll just see what he's got there. And he had his big old portfolio book with lots of sketches, and I'm like, wow, you're really good. Yeah.
I started seeing like, wait, I recognize some. Oh, Grendel. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, nice to meet you, Mr.
I know. We've talked about not being. I'm not an original art guy. At home, who's behind me? I don't have the space. I have the wall space. He is somebody I eventually would like to get a page from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is somebody I'd eventually like to get a page from. Him and Kevin McGuire.
I can see that.
Yeah. Those are two artists I would like to get a page from. Yeah.
Well, you do have an opportunity at HeroesCon because Kevin will be there. Wagner will not be at it. Yeah. But
but there are.
I mean, there's. there are definitely will be. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's like meeting artists, meeting writers, getting to chat with them about stuff is really fun. But also panels. Panels are great too. And when you have sort of like a more pop culture con, a lot of the people that are around you are going to the big panels where they're going to talk about retrospective on a particular show or some kind of movie or whatever. And there's a lot of foot traffic and a lot of attention on those. HeroesCon, it is all about the comics, and you'll get some really interesting stories. I mean, Bill and I, we went and saw Jeff Smith talk about like the history of Bone and like how it happened and who he
who was involved in the history, like
who was involved, who convinced him to put him in color. Like that was a huge like I don't know, color. Nobody's gonna want to read that. It's like Art Spiegelman thinks so.
Yeah. And a good thing about I've never had a problem getting into a panel at Heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rooms are really big.
Yeah.
To start. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I still want to do
a lot to look forward to.
And plus, I'm
an
busy. Old man, so I can't stay on my feet too long these days. So
it is a nice place to take a seat.
Fucking truth. Yeah. So I gotta be sensible about how long I'm on my feet. So.
Comfy shoes.
Yeah.
Well, it's the inserts. The inserts of the
comfy inserts.
Yeah. Custom made orthotics.
So for me, I've got a couple, right? Like eating a sandwich with Garth Ennis in New York Comic Con was fun. just because I was like, it was a very surreal moment. I was like, oh, sitting at a table having a sandwich with Garth Ennis. Thanks, Avatar Press. But for me, like I'd say, like the best moment was definitely meeting George Perez and talking to him and having that moment, like you said, con etiquette. I'm not going to give you my childhood story, but being able to say, hey, man, like you're the artist that made me a comic fan. Also, I'm really gay, but I've got most of your bondage comics that you have drawn. And he was just like, that's a sentence I've never heard before, but that's awesome. Because George Perez drew a lot of bondage comics. That was something he was very into the kink scene. And so
he has porn credits, you know.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not talent, as they say, but he's like the bartender or the, you know.
Yeah. It's just a really cool guy.
Dispatcher. Yeah.
But yeah, so I actively will seek that, like as far as the printed stuff that he drew and did, like that, I'll actively seek that out. I'm always looking for that. So if anybody has some of that or can point me in the right direction, I'm down for it. Right.
Andy Mangles could probably give you the credits.
So that's mine.
Yeah.
Just because what a dynamic human.
Yeah. So we got HeroesCon coming up.
We'll be talking about it, and then we'll be talking about having put another year in the
Heroes.
can. So.
Yeah. And just knocking wood, nothing going wrong.
No injuries, no illnesses. We're going to we're nothing.
All right, we are at the
45 minutes in,
and we haven't talked about a single new comic book yet. So why don't we do that? Steve, you've been on before we got on about how this is going to be the summer of James Tynion. So why don't you just start off with that?
So it is Tiny Onion. It is Tiny Onion season. And you know, he's obviously, his name has been popping up quite a bit over the past several years. He's basically had a hit comic every year since The Woods, I think, which came out, what was it, 2015 maybe, was when it first started. But I mean, he's written stuff for DC, for DC Black Label / Vertigo, Image, Boom. Boom's put out quite a bit of his stuff, like The Woods, but also I think Something's Killing Children, and a few other series. In fact, Boom, I think for their free comic book day, they did The World of James Tynion as one of their free comic book day issues that had, segments from The Medic, from Wind, from The Woods, and a couple other series that they published. Basically he's got something going on at almost every studio, at every publisher at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that also does include the new kid on the scene, DSTLRY. So DSTLRY has put out a new series. It's going to be a 4-parter called Spectregraph. And, like most of Tynion's other stuff lately, it is horror. So it is a horror comic with a little bit of, interesting stuff going on. This is being touted as, if you liked, what is it? House of Slaughter? House on Haunted Hill. The 13 Ghosts. What was that movie? The 13 Ghosts. Probably called 13 Ghosts. But like things like that, where it's a very bizarre house that's kind of the center of it. And inside the house are trapped spirits of some sort. Some kind of supernatural entities are there to torture the people who are trapped inside. And as a very basic elevator pitch, I mean, that kind of describes what this book is. Going into it a little bit more, though, there's a lot of interesting, corollaries to maybe, something like, I'm trying to think of a really good, similarity with a film or something, but it's not hitting me right now. I had it written down, but yeah. But in this case, we start with essentially back in 1967, some secret sort of occult society is having a meeting, and a gentleman who's no longer part of the society, left the society, was driven out or kicked out, has made his appearance in a very overly dramatic way. Surrounded by people in robes, he stands in front of the fire and declares, essentially, that he doesn't believe in ghosts, but he's going to make them happen anyway. He knows they don't exist, but he wants there to have been ghosts. And to that end, he and several other like-minded people have been building something, some kind of machine, some kind of, device that will somehow either breach the realm of the supernatural or bring the realm of the supernatural here. It fast forwards, obviously, in the book to 2024, to present day, where we're introduced to Janie, who is a real estate broker, and unfortunately kind of a scatterbrained person. We are introduced to her while she is calling her friend in panic, saying that she left her year-old son in his high chair back at home and is now driving to Malibu. And unfortunately, can't turn around to go and pick him up because this is so important. They've got this big old house that hasn't been sold and people haven't, lived in for years. And it's like this big treasure of this real estate agency. And there's somebody who's interested in buying it. So she has to make it there. So she's kind of giving herself permission. My son will be fine. He's just in his high chair. I'll be back in a couple hours. Nothing bad can happen. And when she arrives at the house, she is introduced to Vesper Quinn, who is a very interesting sort of a red-haired, gothy woman who is the agent or right-hand woman for this mysterious benefactor of the Thanatos Corporation. So no illusion or foreshadowing right there with the name of this strange corporation. And meanwhile, there are tons of these gothy people with parasols standing around, just sort of waiting. They want to see Vesper take a tour of this house, and Janie is there to provide that tour for her. And going inside the house, going around this beautiful mansion with some very interesting, intricate, work done in architecture, they end up in this strange room at the center of the house, where Vesper takes the time to essentially knock Janie out, so that she can activate whatever this sort of device is at the center of the room, and all hell breaks loose at that. And Vesper Quinn, who of course you're kind of feeling might be a bit of a villain in this, she's just as shocked and terrified as poor Janie when they realize that they are trapped in this house with something else. Something has come through, and it's very gross. Some examples here on the screen, if you're tuning in. We've got two of these strange specters, Skin Sack, which is just sort of like floating skin in the shape of a person, and Brain, which is just the nervous system of a person floating there. Obviously, from the opening of the book, there's something a little bit more going on here than just ghosts or specters. There might be, maybe these are other trapped people. Maybe these are the remnants of, the experiments from the 60s. But who knows? It looks fantastic because the artist on this is Christian Ward, who never disappoints at all. And it's, his work is beautiful. The brushwork, there's whole pages that look like just, watercolor or, just really well done, very gorgeous designs. And he also does the color on this, and the letterer is Aditya Bidikar, who's done a lot of stuff with comics published in India. Worked with Grant Morrison for years on, I think the book's name was 18 Days. So one of his other works that he started doing after he left Marvel. But just some really amazing work going on here. And again, it is a 4-issue series. Like most of DSTLRY, you only have like 3 or 4 issues. The collected edition is going to be out in January next year if you want to wait that long. But I'm intrigued. I've been really enjoying how DSTLRY has been putting out their books. They're all extremely high quality. They're also very large size. So luckily I was able to find magazine size boards and bags that weren't going to break the bank. But yeah, it's gorgeous. Some of the cover art, if you can find it, is also pretty amazing. Joelle Jones, issue number 1, sold out extremely quickly. But if you can find it, it looks beautiful. It's almost like a early 70s inspired film or novel cover. It's just gorgeous and pink and really cool. But yeah, so I don't know if anybody else has read issue number 1 on this. I mean,
no, but you got me interested.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Hits a lot of my buttons.
It's really cool. I mean, like if
1967 Secret Society, like fantastic,
yeah.
like fantastic names like what Vesper Quinn.
I mean, you had me at Skinsack. That was all I needed.
Yeah. Well, Skinsack, I do have to say, Skinsack does not make an appearance in the first issue. Instead, we get, I think it's Gut Ghost, not Gut Ghost, not the Gut Ghost.
I was gonna say,
like more Guts Ghost. It's
gotcha.
Gross. Let's just say the introduction for this character, this entity that makes its appearance. But it's really intriguing, and also, with a heroine like Janie, who, man, she left her toddler in a high chair back in LA somewhere while she's off on this job, and now is trapped in a mansion that's also a vortex for evil, maybe. Yeah, not a great mom, but
I mean, I was,
and even Vesper Quinn, kind of flipping her, getting flipped on the head. It's like, she's just an evil gothy woman. That's, no, actually, she's kind of possibly multifaceted. So this is, it's interesting. Tinian likes to play with his characters like that. So,
I mean, being a little bit flippant about the Skinsack thing, but I mean, legitimately, magazine-sized Christian Ward art is all really the draw there for me. Like I love that guy's art, and to have it when a good artist needs that extra square footage, I guess, that extra real estate, or at least gets that extra real estate on the page to show out, it's something special. And he's one of them, right? He's one of a handful of people I can think off my head that deserve that magazine size format.
And this isn't the first time in the past year, actually. I mean, he did Aquaman. What was it? Yeah. Aquaman Armageddon. And that was also, with Black Label, that ended up being, a magazine.
Was it Armageddon or Andromeda?
Andromeda, sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, Aquaman Andromeda. And I'm looking at this. That was written by Rom V. So, yeah, I mean, like, just great teamwork on that one. But I'm looking at this when you were talking about, like, having magazine size. I look back at Matt Fraction's Odyssey that he did with Christian Ward, and imagining that with much bigger format. Oof, that would have been really cool, because that was an interesting looking book. So, but yeah, I recommend it. Distillery's been really putting out some great stuff the past year since they came out. So, not disappointed with this one.
Nice,
very cool,
nice. All right, let's throw it over to Caleb. Caleb, tell us about a book you're reading that you're digging.
All right, Steve. I see your James Tynan, and I raise you a Kyle Starks.
Which I told you I have a huge crush on Kyle Starks.
Oh, and I've seen the man, so that's a mountain you can climb. He is tall and yeah, isn't he like 6'7"?
No, Kyle Starks. No, you might be thinking of Chris
Schweitzer. I am thinking of Chris Schweitzer. Okay, I was getting them conflated.
Chris Schweitzer is a mountain. Kyle Starks is fun size. So.
Yeah. Okay. For some reason I was thinking Chris Schweitzer, who is a mountain of a man. So
and they usually table together at cons because they
did a book together.
Yep.
So. Or I think they've done a couple of projects together now. But back to the book I was going to talk about. So Boom Studios, you mentioned them earlier. Very good publisher, putting out a lot of great stuff. This is a new-ish series. I say new-ish. It's on issue 5 right now. I think if you go to the comic book store, you should be able to find the first 5 issues. But as I am wont to do, I let it stack up a little bit. So I just read this week. Written by Kyle Starks, drawn by Friend Galan, I think is how you pronounce his name. I could be completely wrong. Drawn and colored by Friend, and then lettered by Pat Brousseau. So this book checks a lot of my boxes. I mean, to start with, again, Kyle Starks, right? Love Kyle Starks, that writer. Just hilarious stuff. And actually, this is a relatively more subdued version of Kyle Starks. I noticed, right? But the book is ultimately a detective story, and I really, really enjoy detective stories. Now, you may be wondering what the title is, Pine and Merrimac. Pine and Merrimac is actually the cross street where this husband and wife duo have opened up their shop. The wife, her name is Linnea. the husband, his name is Parker, and they are not only partners in life, they are partners in business together. They're a little bit detective, private detective. Linnea has a little bit of history. Her sister, she was very close to, her best friend growing up, was murdered, was kidnapped and murdered, and completely set her life on a different course. She ran off. As soon as she could get out of a little small town and away from just all the trauma that was connected to it, she did. She moved to the city. She became a homicide detective, but because she wanted to catch the bad guys, to right the wrongs that were done to her, to prevent it from happening from anybody else. But it doesn't work out that way because again, trauma, right? Like, she turns out she hates murder a lot. And so it was just a bad career move for her. She couldn't get into it. At the time, she'd already met Parker. Parker is a prize fighter, a very successful prize fighter. Like, homie is built. He is a large but loving partner. And she goes to him. She's like, look, I'm sorry. I don't know what this means for us, but I've got to get out. I need to move home. I got to get away. I can't do this anymore. And he's like, well, the only thing it means is that I'm coming with you, and we'll do whatever we need to do. So he follows her there, and they set up shop and become private detectives. And, for the most part, they get into the usual shenanigans, right? Like, somebody's husband is cheating on his wife. Somebody's committing some light fraud somewhere, and they get to go and do the whole sex lives and videotapes treatment with them, which does not make them the favorites of several people. They've got some enemies who are really upset that they were on the other end of their detective work. And there are some folks who say, hey, you ruined our lives, and they're just like, no, all we did is we picked up the breadcrumbs that you left behind. You ruined your life. No one told you to go do the thing that we caught you doing. We're just doing our job. But that all kind of turns on its head one day when not really serendipity, that's not the right word, when bad memories come crashing down through a similar event. A young woman goes missing, and they start to kind of check things out, and they realize that there is a series of events happening here that is leading to a pathway. Bill, you mentioned earlier that one of the boxes that gets checked for you are secret societies. As they are investigating this young woman's disappearance, right? They're going through, they find the nefarious bikers who are up to no good, and they follow them, and they do some creative interrogation, we'll call it that. Some things that might not be completely legal to get answers. And that leads them up a food chain, so to speak, of human trafficking and some really dark things. What they find, and I won't get too much into it because I don't want, if you haven't read issue 1, you'll only get to see some of the breadcrumbs. But what they find is that just outside of this town, there is a little island that no one goes to, right? It's just abandoned and there's nothing there, supposedly. Except when they get there, they find chain link fence blocking out everything, right? They can't get to things. There is obviously traffic coming in and out of this island. There's a boat dock that's heavily guarded. There is something happening here. And what you learn is that there is, in fact, a secret society that is sacrificing young people, maybe to prolong their own lives, maybe for fame and fortune. We're not really, there's not necessarily a single reason that they could be doing this. It seems like there's lots of reasons that each individual person might be doing this. But how that works, what kind of dark magic is up, well, I'm going to leave that for you guys to uncover. An absolutely delightful book and an absolute pleasure to look at, right? Gallen's art is extremely kinetic. It moves on the page. The line work, the texture that you get from it is absolutely wonderful. One of the things you notice is that a very adept artist, right? A very, very adept artist. He can draw he has a very cartoonish style, which is kind of something you expect to see from a Kyle Starks book. But if you look at there's pages with childlike doodles on there that will remind you of I went blank, the Chicago artists that do not Hembeck, but do the little kid-like drawings, art, and I can't think of the name. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm having a Steve moment. Apparently, it's going around. But just great work. Extremely kinetic, and then really pulls off Kyle Stark's gags. If you read a Kyle Stark book, you expect comic book gags. There's one scene in here where somebody throws shit at a window, and just it's hilarious. But honestly, and I said this earlier, this is a little bit more of a subdued Kyle Stark's book. Did not have all of the gags that you got from like a book like Trigger Keaton, right? Or even some of the funny character moments that you got from
like Old Head.
Say what now?
Old Head or Sex Castle or
what was the one that he just did that was the serial killers? They all live on the same block. Our friend Brian,
was it something Neighborhood?
Our friend Brian Newberry was a huge fan of it. He'll get mad at me for not remembering it, but just a solid book. Peacemaker Where Monsters Lie. That was it. Peacemaker tries hard. There's lots of gags in that. There's not as many gags in this. He doesn't play up the humor. I think he really is trying to. It's in there, right? It's not without its humor. There's a lot of it in there, but he also plays up the emotion really, really well. There's a lot of trauma in this book, and there's a lot of tension, and does a really good job about building up that tension. So I think he's kind of flexing some other writing muscles to just kind of really see what he can do, and maybe cast out some nets, wanting to show, hey, I'm more than just a funny gag writer guy. Like I can give you drama if you want drama, or I can lace it all. So fun experiment. I always like to see when artists and creators stretch themselves out a little bit. They take risks, they try new things, and I don't know that was intentional, but I certainly think it could have been. And if that's the case, then he's pulling it off very, very well. So if you're into detective stories, if you like a mix of crass humor and some suspense, if you're into secret societies, and just husbands that love their wives and aren't afraid to like beat the shit out of somebody for coming at them the wrong kind of way, but will support them to no end, then this is the book for you. And I think you'll really, really enjoy it. I'm not sure if either one of you guys are reading this, but I think if you do, it's a good time.
I mean, it's something that I would pick up. I do love Kyle Starks. The last book I read of his, of course, was I Hate This Place / Fuck This Place.
Yeah.
And that was a great, that was Kyle Starks writing some humor, but also writing horror. And I think he did, a pretty good job, because there was a lot more serious moments in that book as well, like some real sort of, cliffhanger kind of violent moments where you're like, I don't know. Like, I worry about these characters I've come to love. Like, are they going to be okay? Are they going to make it through it? It does sound like he's really kind of, playing with genre a lot more and getting to put out some more serious stuff with all of his stuff. And again, if you like pure funny Kyle Starks, I mean, any of the Rick and Morty books that he writes kind of fill that gap as well.
Speaking of the Rick and Morty books, have you guys read any of his, I guess, young adult, border on all ages books like Karate Prom?
I haven't. No. I would say Rock Candy Mountain.
It's not. It's Macmillan who publishes it, so it's not something we normally would see in the comic book shops, though it is comics.
No, and I haven't read.
I would still read it.
I haven't read his Rick and Morty stuff either. I've tried different Rick and Morty things. It's just not a property I seem to have been able to find my way into.
I've never watched one episode of Rick and Morty.
I gave it a valiant effort and realized that I could be doing so many more things with my life.
Okay.
And I have watched every episode at least 10 times. So.
But again, so for me, I don't like comedy, and I also don't like South Park. Right? I don't like a lot of King of the Hill. I like the blips from it are great. The Office, that kind of stuff. Just I don't find it does not attract me. It's not my kind of thing because I'm broken on the inside mainly. So that's a me thing, not a reflection on you. Me saying I don't like it does not mean it is bad. It just means it is not something that I'm going to gravitate towards.
Okay. All right. Well, you've mentioned books from Distillery and Boom. I'm going to throw my choices over to one of the big two, and I've got two books I want to talk about. The first is I'll get both of these out since the first 2 issues have come out. Batman Dark Age.
Ooh.
By Mark Russell with Mike and Laura Allred. Yes, it's the same team of Superman Space Age.
Yep.
And it's very much a spiritual cut. What are you going to say, Steve?
I just said gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, it's all red art just to me.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It's a spiritual sequel, I will put it that way. It doesn't share the same continuity, but it basically is following the same format of putting Batman against an actual time frame. In this case, he would have been growing up in the 50s and into the 60s. However, the story actually starts in the year 2030 with Bruce Wayne, and he is having memory problems. He's actually in a facility, and as part of his treatment, he's writing down some of the events from his past. Now, the events from his past means he's Batman, so I don't know who actually is going to have eyes on this journal that he's doing, but this is basically his story from that perspective. And we actually start in 1957, and Thomas and Martha Wayne are going to see the Curse of Zora, but there's a slight twist in the origin story here. Bruce stays home. And that makes a very big difference on his trajectory as a young adult. Initially, he is the curious, the calculating Bruce Wayne that we're used to. But then he goes astray a little bit as he hits his teens. Then I don't think that's any surprise. This is set against the backdrop of the inheritance of Wayne Enterprises. So Bruce, when he reaches the age of 18, is going to take the reins as president and CEO. Until then, there's an interim. Lucius Fox is voted out, and the Black Mask, Royan Cyanus, however the fuck you pronounce it, is the one that actually takes the reins of Wayne Corp. And this also means that before his 18th birthday, they're going to rub out Bruce. So that storyline is percolating. There are a series of events where Cyanus is, while still with the company, it's determined because of some of his associations, it might be best if there is somebody new at the helm. And this is a spoiler, and I think this is going to play into something really big later. It turns out to be Pariah from Crisis on Infinite Earths. This is how crazy it gets, okay? And in the last frame of the first issue, they're talking about projections, and he says outright, we don't have to go that far. Let's stop around 1985. So through the first issue, you have his first meeting with this version of Selina. As I said, he's going down a darker path. He ends up in a street fight, and while he usually is bailed out by his wealth, in this case, they can't get to him in time, and the actual arresting officer is James Gordon, and he ends up getting sentenced to 10 years in Gotham prison. So the second issue, he's there in jail, and what happens is, and this almost looks like there's a Poison Ivy thing that's a bait and switch. That really isn't. This is actually the jungles of Vietnam. That's what the precursor is. He avails himself pretty well in fights in jail because, the contract's still out on him. Somebody gets wind of this, and this turns out to be General Sam Lane. And with that, he ends up in Vietnam. And he's with a particular battalion that is being trained by Ra's al Ghul. And some of the other individuals that are part of his battalion are also the children of very wealthy men, which include Max Lord and Oliver Queen. So, and these aren't surprises. It's stated outright, even in solicit. So, sorry for spoiling, but this is how this goes. So, Bruce avails himself pretty well as a soldier in Vietnam. And then he returns home. And that's where we leave off with the second issue. Through the middle, this, and also we actually see him become Batman in a sense. When you read the story, it'll make sense. One of the great things about the Superman series that Russell and the Allreds put together was that there were real life historical events. We don't have that as much here, just because I think Russell's needs to tell a very different story, but we do have some stuff. We have an extended cameo by Lenny Bruce, because Bruce starts going to beatnik and comedy clubs. Again, we have Vietnam. And I want Russell and Allred to do this for every DC character. I want them to do this for Metamorpho. I want them to do this for Martha Wayne. I want them to do this for Copperhead or any fucking C-list villain. I want them to do this for everybody, because it's such a wild ride. You never know where the story's going to go. And that was the same case with the Superman series. When you turn that page, you didn't know exactly what you were headed into. And we have that vibe here, and also with having the framing of an older Bruce, which almost is like a tip of the hat to things like Batman Beyond. It's all of Batman together still, and I just absolutely love the two issues that were here. And again, I just hope they get to do this with almost every character because so much.
Condiment Man.
Like you didn't even know about this.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Okay.
This is the first I've heard about this, and that is strange to me. And I guess it's I don't know why. I have not done my due diligence on going over previews. I've just been kind of relying on word of mouth for comics, maybe a little too much lately. And
especially since there's so few Batman solicits.
I mean, yeah, there's only
you never know when an issue of Batman might come out.
I'm obviously a fan of this team, right? And I loved what they did with the Superman book. Superman Space Age was incredible. I'm kind of like you. I mean, like, I was gonna pick this up, and then you mentioned Lenny Bruce, and like I'm going to pick it up tomorrow.
Okay.
Because I need to see Mark Russell writing Lenny Bruce. I mean, I think that's a fantastic. Knowing him, knowing his history, knowing Mark Russell's history, knowing his relationship with politics and the First Amendment and stuff like that. That's like having him write Lenny Bruce is amazing. This art, just by the covers you have shown alone, really showcases why Mark Allred is one of the best in the business. I mean, look, he's playing with panels on a cover. That's crazy, right? Like, and the way he's using the bars to flip through and show the dual personality. I mean, it's outstanding. Nothing to me feels more postmodern than when Mark Allred is drawing it. It's incredible.
Let me just show this to you if you can make it out. Probably can't there. What we have here, that's not Jackie Kennedy, that's Lois Lane in a pillbox hat.
Oh,
yeah.
Just
wow.
that
Lyndon
dude
Johnson is president there.
But see, when he draws the 1960s, it feels it's obviously the 1960s though, but it feels modern. It doesn't feel like dated. It doesn't feel like he's showing you like David Attenborough's voice is going to come over and tell you a fun fact about what happened on the grassy knoll. Like it feels like, okay, like this is now, but it's it's a modern. I don't know how to say it. It is history through a futuristic lens, and it works so well.
Yeah, the thing I've always felt with Allred's art is there's a level of creepiness to it.
Yeah.
The colors are always very bright. I always think the X-Force, Ecstatics was probably the peak of this,
Mm-hmm.
where there's this subversion that goes on. It doesn't matter what's being drawn. It can be, a couple of, it can be a couple kissing on a blanket at a picnic, but there's still this level of darkness in there.
Well, it's
I don't know if that comes from Mormonism or, where that comes from, but keep it up, because there's no one else like him.
Well,
there's nobody else like him.
It's pop art, but it's pop art drawn by somebody who's trying to tell you about how evil consumerism is versus trying to sell you something. Like, it is pop art designed to tell you that the product that is being sold to you is late stage capitalism.
Or is probably going to kill you because you've lost all hope in yourself.
Yeah. And
Victor's joined us as well, and he's mentioned he does agree on the playing with panels on the cover of the jail bars. Yeah, I mean, just very, very clever framing, very clever.
Yeah. And again, with Russell, with the politics, though this isn't as steeped as Space Age is, there are these brilliant little twists that he always pulls in. A thing about Vietnam is it wasn't the rich kids that were dying over there. Here it is. This group of commandos, who were all like troublemakers in some capacity, are children of privilege being thrown into that situation. And, some flourish and some literally die. And it's such an interesting twist. So interesting. And, oh God, I can't, like I said, I want every DC character. I want Perry White's fucking wife. I want like every DC character to have their own age.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would I mean,
Alice White. For anybody who complains, I know it's Alice
White. Yeah. It sounds like if the All Reds and Russell can get some of those made, my guess is they will never need to retire.
Yeah.
Because there will be Bill Zanowitz buying every single issue.
And then I'll just keep going with my second issue. And this is a done in one. It's an anniversary issue. And Caleb commented that this is, probably the best continuing series that's out there right now.
Yes.
And that's Batman Superman World's Finest. Yep. This is the 25th issue. It's the oversized 25th issue. And you'll see there you have Superman and Batman, but who do you also have? You have Lex Luthor and you have Joker. And this is about a team up between the two. So for one issue, this becomes World's Vilest. Though we have a Dan Mora cover here, the art inside is by Steve Pugh.
Yeah.
And I hear an echo. Is everything okay? We're all good? Okay. So one of the best conceits about World's Finest is it's not set to a particular time. Most of the stories take place at some point in the past, but they don't lock it into like Batman's first year or, a year after the death of Superman and Doomsday. It's a bit amorphous, and that is ideal for Mark Waid as a writer. That's ideal for him. Because I think you just have more fun in the sandbox, where something that clearly is steeped in continuity yet not locked to one particular time, and he just seems to flourish in these kind of situations. So what happens in World's Vilest? So we have Lex basically seizes Joker after he's been arrested for an umpteenth time, because Lex needs Joker's help. There is an item that Lex wants to obtain, and he knows that the only way he's going to be able to get it is with someone who is well versed in madness, and who better than the Joker. So he puts this scheme together. He basically kidnaps Joker, puts a collar on him, almost like the Amanda Weller neck bombs. So Joker has to cooperate, and he wants to obtain something. Let me see if I have the name of it here, because it really is in some ways a MacGuffin, but not. The Heart of Eternium. The problem is, to obtain the Heart of Eternium, he has to go into Shazam's subway, because the Heart of Eternium was mined on the Rock of Eternity. And this is something that can give Lex Luthor almost complete power. And what does he want to do? He wants to end Superman's life. That's everything that Joker wants to do. That's everything that Lex wants to do. So they go through this, and Lex and Joker always have this weird chemistry. A lot of ways being a counterpart to Superman and Batman. The thing is, I don't think that Lex was really prepared for the chaotic force that the Joker was, or is. Let's put it that way. So they are able to obtain the Heart of Eternium, and this turns out to be Lex's biggest nightmare, because they both are able to touch it. And Lex learns that his biggest nightmare is not Superman, but it's actually the Joker. And he's the individual on the planet that we all need to fear. And even above Lex's hatred for Superman, he makes a decision that stopping Joker is more important than taking Superman out on any day. Like I said, it's a done in one. This could have been like an issue of Brave and Bold or something, or Super Team Family. It moves swiftly. The characterizations for both Lex and Joker are right on the money. And if you tell me like, oh, here's this book's going to be a team up of Lex Luthor and Joker, just insert the meme from The Devil Wears Prada, florals for spring, groundbreaking. But somehow this brings new life into something that kind of should be a tired concept, and it just works so well. So this came out last month. I'm sure it's still on the newsstands to find it. World's Finest, number 25.
Yeah. And I think we got some agreement here from Victor. He's, same thing. Nods. This was a fun issue.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah.
I agree. Like, I haven't read a lot of this volume of World's Finest. I was reading the last volume that came out. Oh, gosh. When did that start? That was around Rebirth, I think, was when that one started, possibly even earlier than that.
Oh, so you're talking about World's Finest in general and not Mark Waid, because this is about 2 years old.
Not the Mark Waid one. I've read some of it. I read a couple issues here and there. Like when they started to go through the Magog, storyline. Like that was pretty neat.
Thunder Boy Thunder.
Thunder Boy, yes, that's good.
I'm very uncomfortable with that name still.
Thunder Boy.
Boy Thunder.
Boy. Yes, that's right. But yeah, I mean, it's just really cool, and the people who read it regularly are very happy with it. Like they really just enjoy. It's kind of like good old fashioned comic storytelling, the kind of nostalgic, but not, because it's definitely
so well crafted. It's so well crafted with such an understanding of the characters that are used. Sometimes you read a comic and this writer didn't, began research on the character the day he started writing it. Sometimes you see it like any Black Panther guest appearance. It's like, oh, I guess I got to read about Black Panther. But I swear to God, like for some reason that always like comes up. Waid is somebody who's forgotten more than we'll ever learn about some of these characters. So, it's refreshing. And that's the thing. Like when I say it's refreshing, because it somehow is so fresh. Even though these are concepts we've seen again and again, there's a freshness to us, and that's what makes this particular title stand out.
Well, what's great about it, right? And I was sitting there having this thought before we even kind of went there. Is there? Okay, so for example, books that are in the Black Label world, right? One of the things I love about them is they aren't adherent to continuity, and they don't need to be. And that actually lets the creators be freer, and they can tell these really cool stories without having to go through 80 years of stuff, right? and they just kind of play fast and loose with it. We're going to tell you good stories. Some of it's going to be stuff you've heard before, but we're not chained down by continuity. And I think that is great, right? There are some really cool books out there that do that. And I like that because we get fresh and modern stories. But then you get Mark Waid, who comes along and is like, I can do that, but here, let me remind you about how cool continuity is, right? Yeah. And let me show you the right way to play with it. And you don't have to be untethered from continuity to tell fresh stories and to have new ideas and to go new places, right? That being said, I don't think DC is going to let just anybody do that. They're letting him do it because he's Mark fucking Waid, right? So, I mean, there's a thing with that. But it's so fun because it gets that. It reminds me, it's like, oh man, this is why I've got omnibuses on my shelf and I like to read them so I can go back and recognize things that are referenced in other places, or why I read the things that are written in 2024 and I don't catch things, right? But if I go back and read, I'm reading Fantastic Four omnibus right now, the first ones, the Lee and Kirby stuff. And like, I'm catching references that got made in Hickman's books that I didn't actually catch. And you're like, well, shit, these guys actually really did more than I gave them credit for. I mean, I'm not giving Hickman credit because he's Hickman, right? But like other quote unquote, maybe less writers. That's fair to say with Hickman. There are lesser writers in Hickman.
Yes.
But you catch stuff that they did, and you're like, man, I got to give that dude, that person credit for doing what they did because they did the research, and I didn't catch it. Right? That's on me. I love that, and I love what Mark Waid is doing here. I'm not like. It is one of the best ongoing titles being published right now, period. And not only that, but this is also the second done-in-one books from DC that have came out in relatively recent history that are outstanding. Wonder Woman #9 is still my favorite book of the year by far, right? And it's the same thing. Tom King is, quite frankly, like, he is not a carbon copy, but he is of the mold of people like Mark Waid. And he's another artist. Like
I would not say that.
See, I look at what he did, and he's not afraid to go against the grain when it comes to continuity.
I agree with. I'm just approaching it from the perspective of the knowledge base of the characters. But what I will say with Tom King is, there's an excitement.
Yeah.
Because I think there are things like some of the backgrounds of the Danger Street characters, that may have been something that was, relatively new that he found out about. So I wouldn't lump him with Waid on that basis, but in terms of being able to provide these characters through a different lens, but still be the classic versions of the characters, if we can say that, I think he's excellent at that.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair too, Tom King has not been in this business and doing this job for nearly as long as Mark Waid had. Tom King in 20 years could be that person, right? I think he has the raw material there to be that person. Whether he will be or not is yet to be seen. But even books back as far as Vision, like knowing that character and the connection with Wanda and stuff that's in there, there's a lot of little Easter eggs written in there about the history of that character that I don't think enough people gave him credit for.
We were talking about how we didn't really go into news today, but one thing that did break today was him doing a one-off issue of Archie with Dan Parent today.
Yeah.
Tom King, so
that's going to be cool.
Yep.
I like Dan Parent.
All right. Yeah. So
someone else will also be at HeroesCon.
Yeah. So we've been going on a bit. If you guys have another book, why don't we just do it really quickly?
I do have a book that's right here. I'm not going to talk too much about it. Derek Kirk Kim has been putting out a series, quietly for the past couple of months, and it is called The Last Mermaid, put out by Image. Speaking of odd shaped books, this is a wide format book. It is not a tall format book, so it's actually it's a very odd shape. It's perfectly square.
Is it like I can't make out? Is it like Stuff of Legend size, like that square thing? Or
Maybe it's literally perfectly square.
Okay.
I don't know the actual dimensions here.
Okay.
But yeah, it's an awkward shape. But thankfully, because I picked up the pack of magazine size, it fits perfectly. So I'm going to go with that. This book is it's written and drawn, colored, everything by Derek Kirk Kim, and it is a unique post-apocalyptic tale of a mermaid who is roaming the surface of the earth in search of fresh water. Inside of sort of like a waterized mech suit. So basically she floats in sort of like this glass dome of the mech suit and uses it to sort of, go through the, explore this wasteland of Earth. And her only companion is a cute little axolotl who makes little eepy noises and is very just cute. The art itself is very manga, very manhwa, that style, and it's beautifully almost like animation, rendered in that kind of like anime style. Beautifully colored, lots of action, some really great, interesting panels. He plays a lot with dark and light, just pinpoints of light to kind of direct your eye to different places. And puts this poor mermaid through the paces, because she can't survive out in the air. She needs water to survive. Of course, needs fresh water to keep herself alive and her friend Axolotl. And by issue number 3, she finds herself in this cave that's all fresh water underneath what used to be San Francisco, and encounters a just hideous mutant monster who's enormous and who unfortunately swallows her poor friend. And she has to, one, rescue him somehow, cut him out of the belly of this beast, but then also not be murdered by this beast. Mm-hmm. And she finds herself on the surface and encounters a strange gentleman who has been kind of shown in the background of the previous 2 issues, who is now there trying to save her from this monster. And she has to make the choice of whether she could just run for her life, try to get away from this, or help this stranger, this land walker. It's just beautifully made. I'm just really impressed by the quality of this book. It's not for everybody, but I think it's just really fun, artistic, monthly book that you can pick up and check out. And Kim actually said in response to one of the letters that asked about it, it is relatively family friendly. So if you have younger readers, it's something that he's like, for the first 8 issues that I have planned out, it's probably all ages. But beyond that, it gets extremely dark, goes to very violent places. But he has this planned out for 20 issues. Whether it'll go for 20 issues, Image, especially for something that's an odd shape. An outsized book, it's difficult, but yeah, beautiful little book. Check it out.
Okay, and Caleb, you have another book you can talk about?
Yeah, I do actually. Real quick, I'll remind you of the book I spoke about on the last episode of Comic Book Bears, wherein you get to see Clark Kent's boobies. That's always fun.
Yay!
But that's not what I want to tell you about. So, recent wrap up or almost wrapped up series, Vengeance of Moon Knight, one of my favorite Marvel characters, relatively new favorite Marvel character over the past couple years. Jed MacKay is doing great work with this guy. Just wrapped up a 30 or 33 issue series, and this takes place right after that. Long story short, right? Mark Spector died. He got killed. Oh, you're like, what's new? That happens all the time. This time, totally not coming back, right? Not going to happen. Honshu is actually like locked up and in jail, so he can't resurrect him. That's part of the problem. They'll get out. They'll fix it, right? And his whole team that he's put together at this part of the Midnight Mission, which is a vampire named Reese, Hunter's Moon, who is his counterpart, Tigra's hanging out with him, an ex-mercenary named Soldier, reformed criminal named 8-Ball, who wears an 8-ball on his head because comics. They're all teamed up, and they're like, well, what do we do now? Our leader's gone. Let's keep the Midnight Mission going. We're going to keep doing good. Except what happens, Moon Knight comes back. He's not supposed to be able to. Who does this guy? And he's not the same. He's hyper violent. Not that Moon Knight's not always hyper violent, but he's like particularly cruel. and hurting people who may not deserve to be hurt outside of their little purview. So like, this doesn't seem right. Somebody's totally wearing this. Hunter's Moon's particularly pissed because he's like, that's that's A, my God's outfit. B, that was my brother. Don't do that. It's a 6-issue series with gorgeous covers by David Finch. The cover to issue 2 is particularly gorgeous. Like, look at, I don't know if you can see that or not because of glare, but it's the hotness. They're trying to figure out who this person is that's impersonating, they believe, Moon Knight, doing some damage. This also leads in, issue 5 is the first book on the reading order of Blood Hunt, right? This is where this is where you see the first point of the Darkhold characters bursting out and the vampires taking over. Super fun book. Also, one of the main characters, vampire, right? Jed McKay is rocking it. Love this series. Love him on the character. Alessandro Cappuccio does the art. Rochelle Rosenberg does the colors on the series. VC's Corey Pettit does the letters. Fun comic books, fun superhero stuff. Cool world. I like it. You should read it.
Okay, cool. Nice. All right. Well, we're going to start wrapping this show up. And when we wrap up an episode of the Comic Book Bears, we have 2 segments that come towards the end. The first of the 2 is where we show off what we call our geekettes, genre stuff, swag that we might have gotten since the last episode that aired. So start you with Steve. He always has something peeking in the back there, what's related to his geekettes. So why don't you talk about what you got?
So right back here is another one of the posters that my wonderful LCS likes to hold aside for me. And this one is the cover to Avengers Twilight #1 by Alex Ross. And it is a gorgeous Captain America cover. Just really, there's some of that lifelike, that sort of like very, very realistic style, but there's also some of the comic book sort of grittiness that Alex Ross really loves to play with. I think it's just gorgeous. It's kind of hard to see out in the distance there, but I'm not going to hold that there to pick it up. But, if you want to see more of it, you can pick up Avengers Twilight and see this cover.
And that's it. No
Happy Meal. That's it this time. No Happy Meal toys this time. I haven't been to McDonald's for a week and a half.
Yeah, I think I missed out on the Avengers stuff, the Captain America stuff, just because I'm not eating that stuff right now. Not losing enough
the
weight.
movie's not coming out for a year anyway. So.
Yeah, but this is when they were locked into the promotion. So yeah. Okay, how about you, Caleb?
So I'm going to be very limited in here, right? Been very, very busy. Have not had a chance to go and pick up a lot of stuff. Plus, if you've been following my misadventures of adulthood online, had some stuff go on with the house over the past since we've been on here since past month. Really been a drain on our finances. So I've been very purposely not buying things that I don't need to buy. I put kind of a hiatus on buying new albums and stuff like that, which is very, very hard. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm still buying my weekly comics, but I'm not picking up extra stuff. But I will show off something that I got that actually I finally unpacked my bag from when I went to DC a few weeks ago and got home to Major Leagues and house stuff. I went to a Washington Nationals game. Now, I love sports, but I've never been able to really crack in and like professional baseball. But I enjoyed going to the Nationals game. Picked up this Nationals Pride koozie. We're going into Pride Month, and as you know, lots of hullabaloo about companies like Target potentially moving their Pride section online and out of the store and what that might mean and stuff like that. Lots of people who also at the same time were complaining about the co-opting of Pride by corporate people are now upset that they had the audacity to remove the stuff. Anyway, there's lots of pick a lane. I don't care. But thank you for having Pride swag out before when it was not Pride Month Nationals. It's awesome. I think I'm going to declare the Nationals my favorite baseball team and try to get in to be a fan. Have no connection with them whatsoever other than that they're the only National Baseball League game I have been to. But why not? They're the only one I've seen.
That's good enough. That's honestly... Yeah.
Okay. So that's it. Only I went. That was my first NLB home game. So and that's my swag. That's my baseball swag. So as of right now, biggest team I'm a fan of. I don't know. So we'll see.
All right.
That's all I got right now.
All right.
You're just saying the merch didn't suck.
I'm just going to show off two things quickly. Y'all know me, and I've got to get the physical copy of stuff. So I got the physical copy of Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2. The first one was very Flash-centric. This one appears to be Batman and Robin-centric. So at some point this weekend, I will watch this. I haven't even opened this. And talked about this on the show in the past. Unlike many people who are comic book fans, I am not a gamer at all. At all. And that doesn't mean I don't have appreciation for retro games. So my friend Vince Tenebra upgraded his retro system. So he handed off to me the Atari Flashback 8-inch, the Atari Flashback 8 Deluxe. So at some point I have to set this up, and it contains 105 built-in games, including, I don't know if you can see here, but we have Pitfall, Space Invaders, Centipede, Frogger, Yar's Revenge, Pitfall, just said Pitfall, Space War, Tempest, which I never remember there being a home version of. But it shows you how locked I was into this stuff. Sword Quest, Warlords, some games I remember playing, the Video Olympics version of Pong, things that seem to come with the consoles like Breakout and Combat, all here in one package. The only one I really wish was in here was the Activision skiing, because I used to love when you hit a tree, with the limited graphics and audio that were available at the time. When you hit a tree, you go, oh. But
and we thought it was the biggest.
This is gaming I think I can get into. So at some point pretty soon, we're going to set this up, and you can do this remotely. It doesn't have to be hardwired. So that's my geek get.
Nice.
All right. We're moving on to our final segment, which is something we call the woofs of the week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something very similar where we woof at something which may be comic book related, but it also may be a TV program or a film or charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, I'm going to go with a documentary film. And this one was completely surprised. I just saw it and I was like, I'll watch that. Maybe it'll be interesting. It is called Carol Doda, Topless at the Condor, and was a lot more than I bargained for. It is about, simply Carol Doda, who was the first exotic dancer to dance topless in the United States, or at least, publicly at the Condor Club, which is, explains the name. And she became one of the most famous exotic dancers in the country, starting in the 60s when this happened. But it also dovetails very neatly into the sexual revolution, into the civil rights movement. It takes place in San Francisco. The night that she danced topless for the first time was also the night of the Republican convention that nominated Barry Goldwater. So this was just... she was in the right place at the right time in the right era. Like everything was happening at that moment. And it goes through, what was happening around her in the city and then beyond, and then follows her life to the end. But just very fascinating if you're, interested in sort of the history, like sexual history in the U.S., public decency laws, and just how that happens to coincide with the gay rights movement and with the civil rights movement. There's a lot of that in this. So it's a lot more than just a woman taking her top off and shaking her boobies. It is a wonderful documentary. I definitely recommend.
That's on my list.
It's great.
Yeah, get to. All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
Well, my wolf of the week also goes to an album. I mentioned earlier I'm on a buying heart hiatus, but that don't mean I'm not listening. Last week, a very, very big and anticipated album in pop music came out, and that is Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. It is, in my opinion, her best album to date. I think was fantastic. I'm not a Billie Eilish stan, right? Like I'm not going to go to the mat for Billie Eilish. I've always enjoyed, the stuff for the most part. This is sophisticated, right? This showed a leveling up. The songwriting, look, the Barbie song that she and Finn did was impressive. I think from the lyricism, it was neat. It was very meta. And then they took that and they ramped it up. The songwriting on this is actually very, very good. I was really impressed by it. I think it's a great album. Very, very queer. Billie Eilish has recently came out, and she talks a lot about that experience, both physical and emotional, about what that's like. I also jokingly made a joke to a group of friends of ours that had to be an awkward recording experience when you're going up to your brother and like, hey, can you talk about me getting laid, but in like a minor chord? So like that's gonna be weird. It's like, yeah, sis, good job. But that shows the duo of that team. They know what they're doing and they're making good music together. So if you get a chance, listen to it. I think it's worth sitting down and experiencing. It's a very, very interesting album. So check out "Hit Me Hard and Soft" by Billie Eilish.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that you were on this basically mandated hiatus in terms of buying vinyl. But one thing that was so nice in some of the stops that I made over the last 2 weeks was seeing Tortured Poets Effect and the Billie Eilish album, prominent in the front of record stores, and people genuinely excited about physical releases beyond record store dates. It's just really good to see.
It really is. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, mine is also music related. Steve, you do have a graphic that I provided for you. So if you could put that up. This is a 3-part documentary series that's on Paramount Plus. Lala, the story of Lollapalooza. And Lollapalooza, for people who don't know, began in 1991 as a touring festival. Shepherded mostly from a creative standpoint by Perry Farrell of Jane's Addiction. It was conceived as Jane's Addiction's farewell tour. It lasted for 7 years. Then after that point, they started encountering competition from more segmented festivals that were also traveling, like Lilith Fair and Vans Warped and the Horde Festival. And God, I'm just like, I'm so like nostalgic for this stuff after watching this. It came back in 2003, and then 2005 it found a home in Grant Park in Chicago, and I was there. I was at every Lollapalooza from 1991 to 1997, and also the 2003 edition. I've never returned after the first year at Grant Park. I wasn't exactly comfortable with some of their justification for how mainstream it has become. I think there is a place for mainstream music at festivals, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But when you think of the, to go from where the roots were for this to headliners like Miley Cyrus and K-pop outfits, and you lower in the Bill Axley Journey and Limp Bizkit, it's not the same. So I was a little unclear about their justification once it was grounded to one space. But that's, after Coachella, that's where things went. That's just the way it is. But I am very nostalgic for the touring festival right now. And again, with what I was watching from 91 and 97, and they cover them very, very much in detail. I was really impressed with how deep they went in. And I just remember situations like, worrying if we were going to be able to get through the lines to see Lush and Pearl Jam in 92, just because they were just so unprepared for the onslaught of people so early. And, the reason I don't have a tattoo to this day is because Tom and I watched this guy who was like 6'5" run screaming out of the tattoo tent, and we kind of just turned around. I think of things like, and it was so nice to see this, an appreciation for Living Color, who were on that initial thing. I think that it's very important that you do have bands that straddle world between something very commercial and something more independent minded. We, like, I think a perfect band to illustrate that is the Cars. There were people who were buying Gang of Four albums and also buying the Cars, and people were buying Foreigner and also buying the Cars. So I think those are very important bands that exist. And, there was commentary from Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine about how Living Colour were very, very important to Lollapalooza 91 and never really got the credit for being one of the cornerstones of building what he referred to as the alternative arc. And, he said outright, that, Rage Against the Machine do not get a record deal without Living Colour ever. And just the perspectives of that, and, things that I'm remembering, the going to the 94 and it raining so hard that they never put, Nick Cave on stage. They just kind of skipped him. And, that confused year with Metallica headlining, and I just memories came flooding back. And though I wasn't a teenager, it was my 20s. And I was very lucky to have that to look forward to for 7 years in the summer each year. So,
and Bill, you said something in one of our little group of friend chats that was kind of that period in time where some people who are super into music in their teens and stuff like that get jobs and they get out of college and like they get out of music and they get away from it. But these experiences at places like Lollapalooza really solidified that you would be a lifelong music fan.
Absolutely. It's very easy to say goodbye to that, where music doesn't matter to you as much unless something keeps it alight. Yeah. And, where I was in 91, I've always been an Anglophile. And though I liked bands that were prominent in England at the time, like Stone Roses and Happy Mondays and Spiral Carpets, I wasn't, it wasn't a situation like, I'm going to get the next single. I have to get them, they weren't the types of groups that would inspire that in me. And at the time I saw Lollapalooza, I owned, of course I had Susie and the Banshee albums, but I only had the two major label Jane's Addictions albums and the two major label Living Colour albums. And, to bear witness to that, and, Rollins Band being the first band on, and, 9 Inch Nails being so fucking tight for a debut group. I mean, it really changed my trajectory. It really did. I mean, the 1-2 punch of Nirvana and of Nirvana's Nevermind and Lollapalooza, you have to reverse it because Nevermind came after by a few months. It kept me in the game. My wallet probably doesn't thank me for it, but this doesn't exist without Lollapalooza 91. Sure. I'll put it that way. Yeah.
So you liked it, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, it changed my life. Absolutely changed my life. And that was the first time I felt like motivated to be in a band. And was the singer in a band for a couple of years. So 2 bands. Because we broke up and then reformed without the guitarist.
Did anybody tell the guitarist before you reformed, or was it just sort of like
they fucked me over later? So but just so many like mostly fond memories, and my concert, my straight concert husband Tom was my straight concert husband then. And I just emailed him right after it happened. I said, you have to watch this. And also, Tom, where the fuck did the time go? 33 years ago. But I'm so glad I had that experience. And I think people who didn't have it will still get a lot out of this documentary. Nice. At least the first 2.5 episodes. And even with when it becomes grounded, there's like amazing stories, like Chance the Rapper, basically sneaking in 1 year and 3 years later, he's on one of the main stages. Lady Gaga, the same thing, was, at the BMI stage, first up, and then 3 years later, she's a headliner. The near riot that happened with Rage Against the Machine's reunion, and how quickly they quashed that. There was nothing like a Woodstock '99. They were the first major festival that played post-COVID. And we're praying that this wasn't becoming a super spreader event, and knocking wood, it didn't. So there's a lot to see. It's also the first time I saw footage of the international versions that have popped up in the last 6 or 7 years. It definitely worth watching. I also never called it Lala, and people calling it Lala in there. So I didn't know that was the lingo for it. All right. Well, I guess this is wrapped up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on a lot of the social media sites as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on Facebook, however, as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you want to listen to us, you can do so through Apple Podcasts and many of the other podcasting platforms. And if you are watching us through Facebook Live, thank you for joining us tonight. If you're watching us later on YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. And also just spread the word, because we're coming into the late areas of the con season, and we have professional and press applications in for certain shows. So, we have a very healthy presence on Facebook and not as healthy in others. So spread the word, and if you haven't liked and subscribed, or, liked on other platforms, please do so. It helps us out. It sounds a bit mercenary, but yeah.
It be like that sometimes.
I gotta say, I came in a little depressed tonight, because I have this 5-day weekend, really not much going on. Some of you say you're going to see the fucking Rolling Stones on Sunday. Shut the fuck up. I get it.
Yeah.
But I came in the show a little down, and I don't feel that right now, because I talked to two of the people I care about the most, and about a medium that I know we care about a lot. So
feeling is very mutual.
Yes, agreed.
All right. Well, if you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear a woof and explosion. Again, my name is Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
On that audio version, at this point, you're going to hear a woof right after I stop talking. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.
Woof.